The city was busy as always. Cars moved fast, horns shouted, and people walked quickly, all lost in their own worlds. No one looked left or right. No one had time. Rayhan Khan sat in the back seat of his luxury black car. He wore a sharp suit, his watch shining in the sunlight. His driver, Imran, drove carefully through the traffic. Rayhan was heading to a big business meeting, an important one that could make him millions more. But Rayhan wasn't excited. His eyes looked out of the window, but he didn't see the world outside. His mind was cold, like always. Business, numbers, profits. That was his life. Friends, family, feelings? He had forgotten what those things felt like long ago. Suddenly the car slowed down. There was traffic ahead. People were shouting, trying to cross the road. Rayhan sighed and looked outside again. Then he saw him. A small boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sat on the edge of the footpath. His clothes were torn, his feet bare, his face covered with dust. But what caught Rayhan's attention were his eyes, full of fear and tears. The boy was crying, not loud, not screaming, just sitting silently, tears falling down his cheeks. No one looked at him. Everyone passed by like he didn't exist. Rayhan felt something in his chest, a soft pull, but he quickly looked away. "Imran, drive. We're already late," he said in a cold voice. The car moved forward, but Rayhan couldn't forget the boy's eyes. He tried to focus on his phone, reading emails, checking numbers, but the boy's face kept coming back to his mind. 2 streets later, he suddenly said, "Stop the car." Imran looked surprised. "Sir, turn back, now." Without another word, the driver turned the car around. Within minutes, they were back near the footpath. The crowd had moved. The boy was still there. Rayhan opened the door himself and stepped out. People walking by gave him curious glances. Why would a billionaire stop here? He walked slowly toward the boy. The boy looked up at him, confused but not scared. "What's your name?" Rayhan asked gently. The boy wiped his tears and answered, "Zaid. Why are you sitting here alone?" Zaid looked down. He hesitated. His lips trembled. Then he whispered, "Sir, please help my sister. She's dying." Rayhan froze. Those simple words hit him like a storm. "Where is she?" he asked quickly. Zaid stood up and pointed across the road toward a small broken building. "Inside. She's sick. I don't know what to do." Rayhan didn't wait. He held Zaid's hand and followed him. Inside the building, it was dark and dirty. The air smelled of dust and sadness. In a corner, on a piece of cloth, lay a little girl. She looked no older than 5. Her body was thin, her face pale. Her eyes were closed. Rayhan bent down, slowly touched her forehead. It was burning hot. "She has fever," he said. Zaid nodded. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days. I tried, I begged, but no one listened." Rayhan felt something break inside him, a crack in the wall he had built around his heart. He turned to Imran, who had followed him in. "Call the doctor, now, and bring water." "Yes, sir." Rayhan gently picked up the little girl in his arms. Her head rested on his chest. She was too weak to open her eyes. As he carried her back to the car, people on the street stopped and watched. A billionaire holding a street girl in his arms. Unbelievable. But Rayhan didn't care. He sat in the back seat, still holding her, with Zaid sitting beside him. His suit was now dirty. His meeting was forgotten. Zaid looked up at him with hope in his eyes. Rayhan said softly, "Don't worry, I won't leave her. I promise." And at that moment, something deep inside Rayhan began to change. For the first time in years, his heart felt human. The car rushed through the city, cutting through the traffic like a bullet. Inside, silence filled the luxury vehicle, but hearts were racing. Rayhan sat with Zaid beside him, holding the sick little girl gently in his arms. Her name was Amina. She was burning with fever, her breaths weak and shallow. Zaid looked at his sister with wide, frightened eyes. His small fingers clutched Rayhan's sleeve. "Please, sir, don't let her die." Rayhan placed a steady hand. on the boy's shoulder. "I won't," he said. "I promise." Moments later, they arrived at one of the best private hospitals in the city. Nurses rushed to the car as soon as they saw Rehan. They had never seen him like this before. His expensive suit messy, carrying a sick street girl like she was his own child. Inside the emergency room, Amina was placed on a bed. Doctors quickly began treating her. Machines beeped, nurses moved fast, and Rehan stood like a statue, watching everything with tight fists and worried eyes. Zaid stood beside him, looking lost in the big white hospital. After what felt like hours, the head doctor came out. Rehan turned quickly. "How is she?" The doctor gave a small smile. "You brought her just in time. She has a severe infection and dehydration, but she will live. She just needs care, food, and rest." Rehan closed his eyes and let out a deep breath. For some reason, he felt more relief than he ever had after a successful business deal. Zaid's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." Rehan knelt down to his level. "You don't need to thank me. Tell me something. Why were you both alone? Where are your parents?" Zaid looked down. "Mama died last year in a fire. Baba disappeared after that. We lived on the street. I tried to take care of Amina." Rehan felt a pain in his chest. He had spent his life in air-conditioned boardrooms, flying first class, living in mansions. But this boy, so small, so alone, had been fighting to protect his sister on the streets. "How old are you?" Rehan asked softly. "7. And you've been taking care of your sister all alone?" Zaid nodded. Rehan stood up and looked out the window. Something in him was changing fast. These two children were not just a problem to be solved. They were breaking the walls around his heart. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Cancel all my meetings for today, maybe for the week." The assistant was shocked. "Sir, just do it," Rehan said firmly. He then turned back to Zaid. "Come with me. Let's get you cleaned up." Later that evening, Zaid stood in a hospital bathroom looking in the mirror. For the first time in months, he had a clean shirt, clean hands, and warm food in his stomach. A nurse helped him comb his hair. Rehan watched from outside the room. The boy smiled for the first time since they met. A small, shy smile, but real. Back in Amina's room, the little girl was sleeping peacefully. Her cheeks had a bit of color. Again. Rehan sat beside her and gently placed his hand on her tiny fingers. He didn't know why, but tears formed in his eyes. He thought about his own past. Long ago, when he was just a boy, he had known pain. His mother died young, and his father never showed love. That's why Rehan had chosen to be strong, rich, and untouchable. But seeing Amina and Zaid reminded him of what he had forgotten, how to feel, how to care. That night, Rehan didn't go back to his mansion. He stayed in the hospital. In the middle of the night, Zaid came to sit next to Rehan, who was half asleep. In the chair. "Sir?" the boy whispered. Rehan opened his eyes. "Yes?" Zaid hesitated, then asked, "Can I call you Uncle?" Rehan looked at him, surprised. Then he smiled, a real warm smile. "Yes, Zaid, you can." And with that, something changed forever. The next morning, soft sunlight came through the hospital window. Amina was still asleep, but her breathing was calm now. Her little hands rested on the white bedsheet, and a small teddy bear, brought by Rehan, was placed beside her. Zaid sat on the couch nearby, watching his sister with quiet eyes. Rehan walked in with 2 cups of hot chocolate. He gave one to Zaid, who took it carefully like it was treasure. "She looks better today," Rehan said gently. Zaid nodded. "She's strong, like Mama." Rehan sat down next to him. "You're strong too." Zaid looked up, surprised. "Me? Yes. You protected her even when you had nothing." Zaid didn't reply, but a small smile touched his lips. Rehan took a deep breath. "Zaid, I want to ask you something. Would you let me help you, both of you?" Zaid hesitated. "You already helped us." I mean more than food or medicine, Rayhan said. I want you to stay with me, in my home. Zaid's eyes grew wide. Your mansion? Rayhan nodded. You don't have to live on the streets anymore. No. More sleeping in the cold. No more begging. You and Amina can stay with me as long as you want. Zaid looked at his sister, still asleep. But we're not rich. We don't belong in a place like that. Rayhan placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. You belong wherever there is care, safety, and love, and I want to give that to you. Zaid didn't speak for a long time. Then he whispered, Can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you doing this? You're rich, you don't need us. Rayhan's smile faded. You're right, I don't need anything, I already have too much. But when I saw you crying yesterday, something inside me woke up. I remembered pain. I remembered loneliness, and I decided I didn't want to just watch anymore. I wanted to do something. Zaid looked at him for a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay, we'll come with you. That evening, a black car pulled up outside Rayhan's mansion. The large iron gates opened slowly. Zaid's eyes grew wide as he looked out the window. Is this real? He whispered. Rayhan smiled. Very. Real? Inside the mansion, servants stood ready, but Rayhan had given them strict instructions. No formality, no fear. These were not guests. These were children who needed peace. Amina was still weak but smiled softly when she saw the warm room. Soft bed and bright lights. Zaid helped her settle into the guest room, which Rayhan had already filled with toys, books, and a nightlight. Later that night, Zaid couldn't sleep. He walked out into the hallway and found Rayhan sitting by the window, looking at the stars. Can't. Sleep? Rayhan asked. Zaid shook his head. Rayhan patted the seat beside him. Sit, Zaid did. They both stared at the sky for a while. Uncle Rayhan? Zaid asked quietly. Yes? If we stay here, will you still care about us tomorrow? And the day after that? Or will you forget us like the others did? Rayhan's eyes softened. Zaid, I promise you, this is not just for today. I won't leave you. I won't forget you. Not ever. Zaid looked at him, unsure whether to believe it. But something, in Rayhan's voice, calm, deep, full of truth, made the boy feel safe. For the first time in a long time, Zaid leaned against someone's shoulder and closed his eyes. And for the first time in years, Rayhan wrapped his arm around someone not for business, but for love. In a world full of cold hearts and fast lives, a strange bond had begun between a millionaire and a street boy. A bond not of blood, but of care. Not of money, but of meaning, and it was only the beginning. The next morning, Rayhan stood at the window of his study, holding a cup of tea. The soft hum of the mansion was behind him, but his heart was full of noise. Memories he had buried, long ago, were rising again. Memories of pain, silence, and loneliness. He had seen himself in Zaid. Not just the pain, but the quiet strength behind the small voice. Zaid and Amina were still asleep. The house staff was careful not to disturb them. Rayhan had instructed everyone, treat them like family, not charity. As he turned back from the window, a knock came on the door. Sir, it was his personal assistant, Fahad. A call came this morning, from the old neighborhood. Someone recognized the children. They say they know the mother. Rayhan's heart skipped a beat. Alive? They weren't sure. They said she used to work at a small factory, but vanished months ago. She was desperate and scared. Rayhan nodded slowly. Get me the address. Meanwhile, Zaid sat quietly beside Amina, who was slowly regaining her strength. He looked around the soft room, new toys, clean clothes, warm food. But still a question burned inside him. Why us? He whispered the question to himself. Later that day, Rayhan invited Zaid to the garden. They sat on a wooden bench under the shade of a large tree. Birds sang gently in the branches. Zaid, Rayhan said, I want to talk about your mother. Zaid looked up quickly. You found her. Not yet, but we have a lead. Zaid's eyes sparkled with hope, but also fear. She didn't leave us. Something bad happened. I know it. Rehan nodded. We'll find out. Zaid took a deep breath. She used to cry at night. She thought I didn't see, but I heard her. She tried her best. Rehan placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. You're not alone now, Zaid. I'll help you find the truth. That afternoon, Rehan and Fahad drove to the old neighborhood. Dusty streets, broken buildings, tired faces. The factory stood at the corner, rusted and forgotten. Inside, a woman named Rubina worked in silence. She used to know Zaid's mother. Yes, Rubina said softly. Her name was Meher. She was a kind woman, always worried for her kids. She told me one day, if anything happens to me, I just want them to live. Then she disappeared. No one saw her again. Rehan leaned forward. Did she say where she might go? She mentioned a shelter near the river, but that place was closed down last winter. I'm sorry. Rehan thanked her and left, his heart heavier but more determined. That evening, he returned home with a bag of fresh fruits and sweets for the children. Amina smiled weakly as she saw him. Uncle Rehan, she said softly. Yes, princess? He smiled. Will you tell us a story tonight? He chuckled. Of course, but it'll cost you one smile. She giggled, and Zaid's heart felt light. For the first time in days. Later that night, as Rehan read a bedtime story, he paused midway. Zaid looked up. What happened? Rehan's voice became soft. I had a brother once. We grew up in a small house. One day I lost him. I couldn't save him. Zaid whispered. I'm sorry. Rehan smiled sadly. That's why I couldn't walk past you that day, because I know what it's like to lose someone. Zaid didn't reply, but he understood something deeper now. Rehan wasn't just helping him out of kindness. He was healing something inside himself, too. Outside, the night was quiet, but inside, hearts were speaking, across silence, across pain. Rehan looked at the sleeping children, then at the stars. I won't fail them, he whispered. The sun was bright the next morning, but Rehan's heart was heavy. The story of Zaid and Amina's mother, Meher, wouldn't leave his mind. The woman had vanished. No trace, no message, just silence. Something didn't feel right. Rehan sat in his study, maps and photos on the table. The area near the river, where the shelter used to be, had many abandoned buildings. Fahad, his assistant, walked in with a file. Sir, we checked the shelter. It shut down 8 months ago, Fahad said. But one local vendor said he saw a woman matching Meher's description nearby 2 weeks ago. Rehan's eyes narrowed. Then she's alive and hiding. Back in the mansion, Zaid sat beside Amina, feeding her soup slowly. She was better now, still weak but smiling. She had soft hands. Amina whispered suddenly. Who? Zaid asked. Mama, I remember. She hugged me when she left. Zaid lowered his eyes. She didn't want to go. Something made her. That moment, Rehan walked in. Kids, I'm going out for some time. I need to find someone. Zaid stood up. Is it about Mama? Rehan gave a gentle nod. Yes, I think we're close. Zaid's hands clenched. Please bring her back. I'll try my best. Rehan and Fahad reached the river by noon. The place was quiet. Broken windows, collapsed roofs, and empty walls spoke of stories long gone. Rehan walked slowly, looking around. He saw old mattresses, bits of cloth, signs that people once lived there. Suddenly he heard a cough. Behind a rusted door, a woman was sitting wrapped in an old shawl. Thin, tired, but her eyes were sharp. Meher, Rehan asked gently. The woman looked up, alarmed. Who are you? I'm Rehan Malik. I found your children. Her lips trembled. Zaid, Amina, they're safe. With me, Meher. Broke into tears. I never wanted to leave them. I was threatened. Some men, loan sharks, came after me. I had no money, no help. You could have gone to the police, Rehan said. I tried, but no one listened. I ran to protect my children. I thought if I stayed away, they would be safe. Rehan sat beside her. They waited. Zaid begged strangers. Amina was starving. You need to come back. I can't, she said. They'll find me. They won't, Rehan said firmly. You're not alone anymore. That night, Rehan brought Meher to a safe house. She showered, ate, and slept for the first time in weeks. A doctor was called. She was weak but stable. Zaid and Amina hadn't been told yet. Rehan wanted it to be a surprise. Next morning, he brought the kids to the safe house. They walked in slowly. The room was quiet. Then Meher stepped out from behind the curtain. Zaid froze. Mama? His voice cracked. Amina's eyes filled with tears. Meher knelt, arms wide open. My babies. They ran to her, hugging her tightly. The room filled with cries. Soft, painful, healing cries. I missed you every single day, Meher whispered. We thought you were gone, Zaid said. I was scared, but I never stopped loving you. Rehan stood quietly at the door, eyes moist. It was a moment no money could buy. Later that day, Meher sat with Rehan. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You don't need to, Rehan replied. Just promise me something. What? Never leave them again, she smiled through her tears. Never. As Rehan walked out, Zaid followed him. Uncle Rehan? Yes, Zaid. Will you still visit us? Rehan bent down. I will. Always. Zaid smiled. A real, warm smile that Rehan had never seen before. In that smile, Rehan felt something shift in his heart. He had changed. This wasn't just about helping someone. It was about finding something he never knew he needed. A new morning came, soft and peaceful. For the first time in many weeks, little Amina woke up with a smile. Her mother, Meher, was lying beside. Zaid slept on the other side, holding her hand. The small room in the safe house was simple, but for them, it felt like home. Outside, Rehan stood quietly, looking at the sunrise. Something inside him had changed. The powerful rich man who once only chased business was now thinking about bedtime stories and school bags. He turned when he heard footsteps. It was Meher. Good morning, she said softly. Morning. How are you feeling? Like I've been given another life. Rehan smiled. You've earned it. Later that day, Rehan called Zaid to the garden. I have a question for you, he said. Zaid looked curious. What is it? Rehan knelt down to his level. Would you like to go to school? Zaid's eyes lit up. School? Yes, a real school. Uniform, books, friends. You deserve that. Zaid nodded slowly. But what about Mama and Amina? They'll come too. I've arranged everything. Zaid hugged him tightly. You're the best uncle ever. Rehan smiled. He had never been called uncle before. It felt right. A few days later, Rehan took the family to a new apartment. It was clean, bright, and safe. This is yours, he said. Meher's hands shook as she touched the walls. It's too much. No, Rehan replied. It's just the beginning. He handed her a letter. What's this? She asked. Job offer. My company has a place for you. I believe in second chances. Tears filled Meher's eyes. No one ever trusted me like this. I do, Rehan said simply. The next few weeks were full of small, beautiful moments. Zaid started school. On his first day, Rehan drove him personally. He watched Zaid walk in nervously, then turn around and wave with a big grin. Amina joined. A small daycare, where she painted flowers and played with toys for the first time. Meher, strong and determined, began working in Rehan's office. She was shy at first, but her honesty and hard work impressed everyone. The staff noticed Rehan had changed too. He smiled more. He listened, and every evening, instead of meetings or calls, he visited Meher and the kids. Sometimes he brought books, sometimes ice cream, and sometimes he just came to sit and talk. One evening, Rehan and Meher sat on the balcony watching the kids play. They laugh so much now, Meher said. I thought I had lost them forever. You held on. That's what matters. Meher looked at Rayhan. Why did you stop that day? Why didn't you just drive away like everyone else? Rayhan looked at the sky. I don't know, but I think maybe I was the one who needed saving. Meher's eyes softened. Maybe. We saved each other? Rayhan didn't answer, but in his heart he knew it was true. One day, Rayhan got a call. A reporter wanted to interview him. They had heard about the family he helped, but Rayhan refused. This is not for headlines. He told them, this is personal. He didn't want fame, he wanted peace. That night, Zaid gave him a small gift, a handmade card. It had a drawing of Rayhan, Meher, Zaid, and Amina standing together. On top, it said, our hero. Rayhan stared at the card. For a long time, it was more valuable than any business award he had ever received. As the night grew quiet, Rayhan sat by himself, looking out the window. Once, his world was full of empty meetings, expensive suits, and cold dinners. Now it was full of laughter, hugs, and drawings made by little hands. He had found something he never knew he was missing, a family, and he wasn't going to lose it again. The soft sound of laughter filled the small apartment. It was Amina's birthday. Colorful balloons floated in the air. A small cake sat on the table with 5 candles. Rayhan stood at the side, watching Zaid help his little sister wear a paper crown. Meher brought out juice and snacks, smiling as she looked at her happy children. This wasn't a grand party. No big hall, no hundreds of guests, but it was the most beautiful celebration Rayhan had ever seen, because it was full of love. He felt something warm inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. Later that night, after the celebration, Zaid sat beside Rayhan on the balcony. Uncle, Zaid said, can I ask something? Of course. Are you going to leave us now? Rayhan looked at him surprised. What makes you say that? You gave us a home. You helped Mama. Maybe you'll go help someone else now. Rayhan smiled gently. He pulled Zaid close. I'm not going anywhere. But you have a big life, big things to do. You and your sister are part of that now. Forever. Zaid looked into his eyes. Promise. Rayhan nodded. Promise. Days passed and life became more stable. Meher continued her job and even started evening classes to learn more. Zaid brought home good grades and proudly showed them to Rayhan, Amina. Sang small songs and painted flowers for everyone. One evening, Rayhan got an idea. He called Meher and said, let's open something new together. What do you mean? A center. For street children. A place like this, but for many others. Meher's eyes widened. You really mean that? Yes, no more children should cry on footpaths. Not if we can help it. And so the idea became real. 6 months later, the ribbon was red. The board, read, Hope Haven for Every Child. A crowd had gathered. Some came to see what the buzz was about. Some were parents, some were just curious. But standing at the center were 4 people, Rayhan, Meher, Zaid, and little Amina. They cut the ribbon together, cameras clicked, but Rayhan didn't pose. He knelt down to Amina's level. This is all because of you, he whispered. She giggled and hugged him. That night, Rayhan sat with Meher on a park bench near the new center. You've changed, Meher said quietly. Rayhan smiled. Maybe, or maybe I just found who I was always meant to be. Meher looked at him. You saved my children's lives, but you also gave me mine back. You did the same for me. They sat in silence for a moment. The stars were out. Then, Meher said, you never told me what happened to your family. Rayhan paused, then answered softly, I lost my parents young, grew up alone. I built my empire, but it was always empty. And now, it's full. He looked at her. Because of you. Because of Zaid and Amina. Meher held his hand. You're not alone anymore, Rayhan. He looked into her eyes. No, I'm home. Months later, a newspaper article was published. Millionaire gives up empire to build homes for street children. But Rehan didn't care about headlines. He only cared about one thing, keeping his, promise. One evening, Zaid brought a new drawing. It showed a big house, many kids, and Rehan standing in the middle, holding Amina in one arm and Zaid in the other. The title on the drawing read, "Our Forever Family." Rehan stared at it for a long time. This was his real success. Not the money, not the power. This love, this family, this new chapter. As night fell, Rehan tucked Zaid and Amina into bed. Meher stood by the door watching him. He kissed both children on their foreheads and whispered, "Sleep well, I'm right here." Meher walked over and said, "You're really staying forever?" Rehan smiled. Forever and beyond. And in that moment, the rich man who once had everything but nothing had finally found everything.